Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Sunday morning. The fellas had to hop on and talk some Miami Hurricanes football. A massive win, 48-33 against Texas A&M on what was a massive weekend for Miami. A ton of commits and recruits on campus. We talk about Miami trying to change this talent, get it going. This was the game that just feels like might kind of springboard the Miami Hurricanes. And you look back at this game one, Texas A&M played good football. This wasn't like Miami beating a sleepwalking dead Texas A&M team. That's a very quality team that Miami handled. And then secondly, it got off to a bad start, right? Blocked punt. This seemed like a game in the first 5 minutes where it's like, same old Miami. And then they turn it around and play some of the best football we've seen Miami play in the last 5 years. Very excited to get into it, talk about some takeaways. Now, before we do again, just want to say thank you to you guys, and especially the Miami fans. We've talked so much about this program, whether it's on the recruiting trail, the transfer portal, or on the field play. You guys have supported the boys in such a meaningful way. It's been a team that we've loved talking about. So appreciate you guys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, you're not normally on talking Miami Hurricanes football. You wanted to fire it up Sunday morning. How are we feeling about the U right now?
I mean, you just got to be so excited because just everything kind of worked. I mean, I think obviously the biggest thing is that passing attack and Tyler Van Dyke and those wide receivers, like really just rounding in the form again. Like it was bad last year, but like, yeah, they changed up the coordinator. No doubt that had a big impact on it.
Yeah.
These wide receivers, though, just they look like they've taken their game to a new level. I mean, George and Colby Young are just they're playing so good.
That's the biggest takeaway for me from this game is what have we been talking about for the last couple of years? Like the Hurricane at the wide receiver position, it's been just so bad, right? Like last year, Miami Hurricanes fans who've been listening to me all summer probably tired of hearing me say this, and you're not going to be able to hear me say it again. Will Miller led the team receiving yards last year. Like
they've always been able to depend on Restrepo, I think, and he's been the guy. And
when healthy, but regardless of that, like the wide receiver play has just never been that good for Miami. Right now for Miami, you're looking at, three wide receivers in Colby Young, Jacoby George, and Xavier Restrepo that are absolutely nails. And we got to give some love to Shannon Dawson. I mean, credit Mario Cristobal for saying, hey, Josh Gaddis, this isn't working. I know it's only been a year, but we got to figure out something that works. You go and get Shannon Dawson in. This offense looks night and day different. I think the talent's better, the play calling's better, and you saw that all come together in a massive win against the Aggies.
And they've brought Van Dyke. I mean, Van Dyke was playing the way we kind of thought he'd play last year. The ball was getting out of his hands. He wasn't taking sacks. He was, just playing like a really clean football game that we kind of saw him play at the end of 2021, and then 2022 went off the rails for everybody. But for him to get back and look like, he's going to jump right back into that quarterback conversation of being a legitimate, like maybe day 2 draft pick possibly.
And for like me, like Tyler Van Dyke's arm talent was never the question. Like it was a lot of like the processing and just having it be simple for him. And you're seeing Shannon Dawson do that for him, right? Like, wait, we're going to get the ball out of your hands quickly. We're going to let you, like, you had the arm talent to make every throw we need you to make. Like one of the more talented arms in college football. It was more the processing. It was more kind of making the right decisions. Shannon Dawson bringing a much more suitable offense for Tyler Van Dyke, coupled with some wide receivers that are absolute dogs. You see it in the offense. And Dill, we do have to shout out this offensive line that went up against the defensive line that we talked about, like 3 deep with 4 and 5 stars. And my take on this offensive line, and for Miami fans, you have to be absolutely thrilled about this, is just going to get better, right? I mean, Matt Lee, Javion Cohen are transfers. You have a true freshman starting at right tackle. Jalen Rivers, not really his position, playing left tackle. Awesome. This group is going to continue to get better, and they're going to lean on this group. And I know they didn't run the football like a ton last night because it was just this passing game was just so dynamic. But it's an offense that I think is really two-dimensional. It's really balanced. And if they have to win a game physically in the trenches, they can. And if they have to win,
when they had to go close that game out, they did get a little physical, and you saw them start grinding down that Texas A&M like defensive line that, again, we kind of talked about. That's got the talent to be one of the best in the country. I mean, they're a little young for sure, but those guys are so good. And just to see, I think Miami really kind of win that matchup decidedly, that's huge. And it's going to be huge for Miami going forward because that's a real night and day change from last year where their offensive line really went up against anyone. They were usually had the lower
And
hand.
that was like the story all offseason is like, oh yeah, you bring in Shannon Dawson, the quote unquote air raid. Like, again, don't get it twisted. The Miami fans are used to hearing me say that. Like, they're going to lean on this offensive line. This is still a Mario Cristobal coach team. And you saw the balance of this offense really shine last night. Got to talk about the defense too. And again, my biggest takeaway from this win is this wasn't Miami beating a Texas A&M team that stinks. I think this Texas A&M team can win 9 games. Connor Wigman looked good. They got some playmakers on offense. Dill, you saw this Miami defense really come up and make the plays that they needed to make. And again, we're putting some bad spots at certain points and kind of got off the field, made some plays. You're looking at a very complete Hurricanes team heading into this 2023 season or the rest of the 2023 season.
And that's what you got to be excited about. It's just like everything was going. I mean, that defensive line looks like, I mean, there's a bunch of really good players. Ruben Bain, obviously playing the way he's playing as a freshman. And they don't look like they're being overmatched physically by, again, a team that
they're overmatching other teams.
100%. And that's, again, like to see them make this night and day change in terms of how physical they play and in just like I don't know, the talent looks like it's just like similar guys, frankly, a lot of the same guys were on the team last year. Like they did add some transfer portal guys, but those aren't necessarily the guys who are showing out aside from that offensive line that those transfers are really playing well. But everyone else, they were the same guys from last year. So again, to make this giant leap in development from year one with Cristobal to year two, that almost is what's got me encouraged. Like, man, is Cristobal, because you know he can recruit, is he kind of figured out how to like get the best out of his players on a really consistent basis, something that we didn't necessarily see all the time in Oregon.
That's an SEC team that came into your crib, as Coach Dion would say, and they didn't average over 3 yards per carry with their running backs. Like that tells you a lot. And I have a couple other shout outs that I want to have, especially going back this morning watching the game. James Williams, a guy that I've been, pretty critical of in terms of the talent's always there. Like the physical traits are always there. Hasn't always played great football. Man, did he show out last night? Obviously, you really hope Cam Kitchens just is okay after going down late in the game. But regardless, like you look at this Miami defense, we talked about the offense, really, really good. Shannon Dawson has this group clicking. I think it's one of the best pass rush groups that you see in the country with guys like Leonard Taylor, Akeem Meza. I could list 10 guys that I love on that Miami defensive line. The backers, another position similar to the wide receivers that it's like they haven't had good backers in forever. Francisco Mauigoa, Wesley Bissaint, Corey Flagg Jr. finally putting it together. I know it was so frustrating. And as a Michigan fan, like I'm just happy for the Hurricane fans because we've always been like, gotta put it together. Miami's putting it together, and you saw like the culmination, offense, playing great ball, Miami's defense, forcing takeaways, complimentary football. It all came together after a really rough year in Mario Cristobal's year one. This looks like, and we've said this, if Miami can put it together, this could be a fun season in 2023. I think we're looking at kind of a fun season.
What's crazy is I was kind of thinking like, oh, this Miami team just kind of got to hold on this year. Like it's just got to be good. It can't be like a really bad year like last year. I mean, now my mentality is night and day different. Like this Miami team, I think if they can play like that, like they can go compete with Florida State and Clemson and try to go win an ACC title. Like that's not out of the realm of the possibility. If you asked me at the start of the year if that was possible, I would have said absolutely not. It's a 2-horse race at the top. I mean, if Miami can play that well every game, like that's a team that can go beat anyone that conference.
Yeah, and we said, like as a program defining, one, you had a ton of recruits on campus. This was massive to get the win, but we've talked about a lot of like these commits waiting for like, hey, I'm keeping an eye on Miami. Like we talked all summer about the talent that they've had on campus, and every single one of them is like, yeah, I'm looking at Miami. Like if they can put it together on the field, like this is a very viable spot for me. Like that, you got to be excited about the recruit. Now, one thing before we close out, you have Bethune-Cookman, take care of business, should take care of business on the road at Temple, should take care of business at home against Georgia Tech, who I do think is good, but I think they should take care of business. If you can go on the road and beat UNC, and then you're hosting Clemson on October 21st, undefeated, college game day maybe, like you. Man, this is going to get really fun for Miami. The boys wanted to hop on and just talk a little bit about what we saw from Miami and what we might be seeing in the future. Again, Miami fans, this has been it. We've had just such a blast talking ball with you guys. So appreciate you rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all